Hey YouTube, RicoKnows here. I'm going to talk to you guys about this tweet from On3. It's about tight ends. Apparently this young man, Jesse Simpton, he's a writer for On3. He's a journalist, a columnist, if you will. And he put together his top 10 list of tight end rooms in America. And I thought, man, this is just bad. I'm looking at it, and I understand what he's saying. And he wrote down a whole list of things and reasons why. And when you try to say top 10 tight end units, it's like the whole room. Well, that's not the case. I mean, tight end doesn't really matter. Like the whole room, really? We're doing depth charts now on tight ends. When I look at tight ends, it's about formations, it's about schemes, and it's usually the best player. And if you look, the top 10 here, for the most part, are the top 10 tight ends in America, give or take a few, and I think it's just wrong, by the way. But you look at Georgia, Oscar Delp, Ben coming in from Stanford. That's cool. 2 is Michigan, Loveland, right? 3, Nesbitt. I'm cool. Like every single guy's there. Fine. Here's what I want to say to you guys. This isn't the right top 10 for me. Not in the least bit. And I wrote here, and I said, an entire website that pretends to cover college football and you don't have LSU. If you don't have Mason Taylor on your list, you're not serious. Michigan State just got Jack Velling. I'm going to talk about him here in a little bit. The nation's leader in receiving tight end and receiving touchdowns last year. Just transferred in from Oregon State to Michigan State. Penn State, what are we doing? Okay, how are they not there? And then Cal has 2 really good tight ends, and I'll show you that. TCU has one of the nation's leaders in receiving or production, just transferred in from Baylor. So I don't know what's going on. I said, yikes. Said in the intro, I talked about why Michigan State and TCU weren't on the list. They're just on the outside looking in. There's just no way you put real production behind the Oregon room altogether. It doesn't belong on the list. And then Iowa, I understand Lachey's a lot of potential coming off of an injury, but so is, Utah and Kuthi. But when I look at Syracuse, what are we doing? Let's talk about Syracuse for a little bit. Their tight end is Gadsden, and he's a wide receiver, and they're going to call him a tight end, but I want to go up here and click on the right link. USC had Deuce Robinson come out of high school as the number 1 tight end coming out of high school. They beat out Georgia for Deuce Robinson. Now, Robinson moved over to wide receiver. He plays tight end. He's a wide receiver. He's a lot like Arondé Gadsden as far as positional use and where he lines up in the formation. And Deuce Robinson was the 3rd leading receiver, 351 yards, over 21 yards of reception for USC. You don't think he's going to have a bigger year? That's one of the best tight ends out there. If we're going to go there, if we're just going to go off of sheer talent, youth, potential, why aren't we doing this with Deuce, right? Deuce Robinson is him. Yeah, I bet if he was at Georgia, we would have been listing him on that whole list, okay? That's very important to me. Now, the one tight end room that's out there is Cal. If you go and look at Jack Endry's last year, Jack Endry's played great. Okay, he played great at Cal, and they just brought in Corey Dykes from Maryland, the starting tight end from Maryland, a guy with back-to-back nearly 500 yards receiving. This is a prized possession for me, and that's 2 tight ends. Better than anybody at Oregon. That's real. That's 2 tight ends better than everybody at Oregon, but it's Cal. You don't want to talk about Cal that way. You don't value these recruits. You don't understand it. Corey Dykes is him. This is crazy. How are we ignoring Cal? Another tight end that people need to talk about is Tyler Warren. Tyler Warren, Penn State. I don't get it, man. 7 touchdowns, over 400 yards receiving last year. Tyler Warren is great. But by himself, he gets you ahead of Oregon. So figure it out. I know it's not top 15, but if it's top 10, one of these guys is in the top 10. I'm huge on Jack Velling coming over from Oregon State, going to Michigan State, getting back with his old coaching staff. This guy led the nation in touchdowns. Led the nation in touchdowns among tight ends with 8. Not to be played with Jack Velling. Another guy, Harold Fannin Jr. Shout out to Bowling Green. In the MAC, Harold Fannin Jr., 623 yards, 6 touchdowns. This man was 2nd in the country in YAC. Yards after the catch, among tight ends, 2nd in the country, only behind Brock Bowers. If you watch tape, you're going to see 44 everywhere. 44 is great. 44 is him. I envision 44, Harold Fannin, transferring after another stellar season in the MAC next year and getting his big payday. Or just going pro. It doesn't matter. This guy is it, man. Love everything about Harold Fannin Jr., one of the best tight ends in America. You can ignore it. Another one of the best tight ends in America, R.J. Maryland. This is Russell Maryland's son. R.J. Maryland is a problem in the red zone. Back-to-back seasons, 6 and 7 touchdowns. That's 13 touchdowns in 2 years for a tight end. That's nuts. He's a sophomore. He's a problem. You can't cover him. They get to the red zone, you know they're throwing it to him, they still can't stop him. R.J. Maryland, one of the best tight ends in America, you will see this upcoming season. Justin Jolly, one of the most productive tight ends in America, out of UConn, just transferred to NC State, instantly gives NC State's tight end room credibility. Instantly. Just that one transfer alone puts NC State on the map somewhere in the top 15. Give Justin Jolly his credit, his love, and everything else. TCU, getting Drake Dabney. Drake Dabney's been in college football for 4 years, going into his 5th year now, 6'5", 250 pounds, one of the best receiving tight ends in a porous offense at Baylor, and yet he was still getting his numbers. 5 touchdowns, 552 yards. This guy is known goods. Just transferred to TCU. TCU has a tight end. Respect TCU's tight end room. Jake Brenningstool. Oh my goodness. Clemson. How do we forget about Clemson? How do we forget about a young man that almost had 500 yards receiving, 50 receptions? He's a walking first down, averages 10 yards a reception, 5 touchdowns. There's continuity here with your quarterback. This is a great tight end. Yep, ignore him. Ignore him because you don't know. It's sad. Anthony Torres, giving shout out to the MAC again. I watch a lot of MAC football. Anthony Torres can do the damn thing. Yes, only 26 receptions, but 464 yards. Gonna have a new quarterback. Gonna have to figure it out. But for me, another solid talent I wanted to give a shout out to, and then let's go there. Cole Taylor, Mason Taylor, both Taylors used to be at LSU. Taylor's still there. It's very, very good. Jason Taylor, right? Family tree. But when I look at Cole Taylor, 6'7", 250, transferring out of LSU, going to West Virginia, and going for that 444 and 4 touchdowns. Man, this run-first offense, this dual-threat quarterback in green, this team is a problem. And they're going to be good. Big 12, you're not ready. West Virginia's offense is serious, and Cole Taylor's a huge part of the reason why. Shout out to LSU for over-recruiting tight ends and then making it work, right? And they go and dominate elsewhere. And Rivaldo Fairweather's coming back next year. This is a former FIU tight end, transferred last year, goes to Auburn, 6 touchdowns in the SEC. This is a very good tight end. Once again, I believe Auburn's tight end room is loaded because they have one of the best tight ends in America. How people can respect or value Oregon in this whole thing, I'll never know. They're not on the level of any of those tight ends I just listed. And at the end of the year, I'm going to do an I Am Right video. We'll come back to this tape, and you will see the tight ends I just mentioned will be far more productive, will perform far better than some of the tight ends listed on this top 10 list. I'm not guessing. I'm RicoKnows. Your friends don't know. Jesse Simpton doesn't know, but Rico knows. Peace, y'all.